Shawn Ryan, who is a really, really large conservative podcast host, if you haven't heard of him, is coming under fire right now, and he should. He is under fire because he had a guest named Nathan Apffel on his show that attacked the most conservative group in America, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or Mormons, as a lot of people know. As many of you know, I am a member of the church, and here's the thing. This episode, and I want to talk about it because it's just a lie. I'm not here as a representative of the church. It has nothing to do with that. I'm not trying to convince people in this video, because most people who watch this show are not members of the church, to become members of the church. I'm just talking about how this is isolating the most conservative group in America and how that's a massive mistake for conservatives. Here's the thing. This episode was on megachurches and priestcraft and how churches can be very corrupt. I actually think it's a great topic. I think it's fantastic. I've got no problems with it. I think that's a huge problem in America. I think having a discussion, even about my own church, by the way, it's totally fine. No problems with that whatsoever. The problem is that Nathan Apffel went on and made some incredibly egregious and big lies. And I'm going to show some clips of them right here. I say lies and not mistakes because they are lies so egregious that you could have fact-checked them with a simple Google search. Usually when you have people on these podcasts, they're hard hitters. They've done some deeper research than the average person. That's why they're on there, so that people can learn about them. The things that he says, anybody could just go look up and be like, oh, that's just completely false. And for those of you who aren't members of the church, again, you're probably thinking, what does this have to do with politics or conservatism? We are seeing conservative political commentators all over, not just Shawn Ryan with this episode, tell huge lies about the most conservative church in America and about the most conservative group in America, I believe. And it's only a matter of time, this is my fear, before that group determines they are done with the conservative movement. I'm not talking about the Republican Party. The Republican Party is part of the conservative movement in a sense, but I'm talking about a lasting movement to promote things like patriotism, the nuclear family, birth rates, etc. It's not a small number, by the way, people. There's kind of this misnomer out there that members of the church are just this tiny little group in America that have no political relevance. It's 7 million Mormons in the United States, many of which, by the way, live in Nevada and Arizona, which are swing states. I actually think that if you look at the numbers in the counties, there's a huge reason why Nevada and Arizona went towards Trump, and it's because of members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and the hard line that Democrats were taking with abortion, which members of the church don't like. So the Republican Party and conservatives cannot afford to lose them. With that lengthy intro out of the way, here is what Shawn Ryan and his guest said about the most conservative group in America.
The LDS Church petitioned the IRS to add the term auxiliary in front of church in the 60s. And it was men's clubs back in the day. So men would meet up, smoke cigars, hang out, talk. And they're like, this is technically church. And so the IRS added this term auxiliary to their definition. Well, there's no definition, black and white definition of what an auxiliary is. So if there's no definition, anything can be an auxiliary. So the LDS Church registers their investment fund as an auxiliary, which means that auxiliary is technically a church. It gets the same benefits that the church gets. Flash forward 27 years, they're worth $300 billion, and it's all for-profit ventures registered as churches.
Wow. 300 billion.
300 billion in market assets. The LDS Church will hit $1 trillion in market assets in the next decade, all under the guise of a religious institution. And the crazy part is not $1 of that. Now it's a hedge fund because they're hedging. That not a single dollar of that fund has ever gone to humanitarian purposes or even the church.
So right off the bat, clue one, that this man knows nothing about the church. He says that the auxiliary started with men wanting to smoke cigars. It's against one of the commandments of the church to smoke. So off to a bad start, man. You've lost your credibility from the get-go. The only thing that he says in this clip that is accurate is that the church has hundreds of billions of dollars in assets. It's absolutely true. And I'm happy about it, by the way, as a member. This includes church buildings, temples, farms, public stocks, land, private companies. If you don't like that, fair enough. That's the thing. Cool. If you don't like that as a Christian, or maybe you're an atheist, no problem with that. We can have an argument about that, whatever. But what this man lies about is that not $1 goes toward the church or humanitarian effort from that fund. And this is where the egregious lines, these lies come out. That net worth statement of $300 billion includes worship buildings. So obviously that's for church use. So already debunked. In terms of charitable donations, here's a chart of how much they've donated over the past 4 years. what you can see in 2021, if you're just listening, I'll read it out, $906 million. This was reported by the Salt Lake Tribune that hates the church, by the way. 2022, $1.02 billion. 2023, $1.36 billion. 2024, $1.45 billion. So more than $4 billion, close to $5 billion of the last 4 years. So he's making a bold-faced lie there. Again, you can argue that's not enough. You could say, look, they're worth $300 billion. They should have given $10 billion. That's an argument. But to lie and say it's just zero is pure anti-church propaganda. And this stuff pisses Latter-day Saints off. Pisses me off. If you go on X right now and look up prominent LDS voices, they're pissed about this because it makes us not trust good conservative voices like Shawn Ryan. And again, he's someone that I want to respect, but he's posted these clips all over social media saying the church doesn't donate money, and that's not true. They're also making the case in this video that the church should lose its 501c3 status, which obviously is that they're not taxed. And they're basically saying, and this is where I think the conservatism and the church really intersect here, is that they're saying this money would be better off with the U.S. government than with the church. And I just can't think of something less conservative than an idea like that. After that clip that I showed you at first, this is where the lies heat up big time. It gets very bad, like Joe Biden debating Donald Trump bad.
And a lot of times, so the LDS Church is now the second largest private landowner in the U.S., 2.3 million acres.
Wow.
Tax-free. All under the guise of religion and freedom of religion.
And none of this goes to...
They have farms, and this is where the LDS Church is very interesting, and we can get, I really want to dissect the LDS Church with you. They have farms, and so they say, hey, we're building our storehouse. So this is Old Testament Torah. So we're going to have goods and supplies in the storehouse, sufficient in God's storehouse. So they're quoting Malachi. And if you've tithed to us, if you've given your full tithe, you're going to get to enjoy the benefits of our storehouse if there's a natural disaster or if Jesus comes. So they're building their conglomerate, demanding you give 10% of your gross revenue to them, and then you'll be able to benefit from us if something happens. And here's the kicker. If you don't give your full tithe, you don't get to benefit.
How do they know?
Oh, they look at your bank statements.
They turn in their bank statements?
Every year at the LDS Church, you have to go in, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's a meeting with your bishop, and you have to discuss your finances, and he says, have you been a full tithe payer? And if you haven't, it's literally you're docked. And if you're not a full tithe payer, you don't get your temple recommend. And if you don't have your temple recommend, you don't get to heaven with your family.
So I have some personal insights to what he's saying. I was actually a missionary in Washington State. That's where I served. The LDS Church owns farms up in Washington State. They have a ton of land, tons and tons of land. They are not joking when they say that they own, the second most private land in the United States. That's absolutely true. I have personally picked crops, boxed potatoes in Washington State, a lot, and given truckloads of it to poor people and also just random people. I don't know if they paid tithing. Most of them weren't even members. So it's just a bold-faced lie. I just don't even know where he's getting it from. I mean, he's probably got it from some random YouTube video of someone who hates the church. I also happen to be a clerk in the church. Again, for those of you who, the church is very different from other denominations. If you're a Christian of another denomination, in the LDS Church, we have a lay ministry, meaning that nobody gets paid. So essentially, we all get assignments, and that's how the church runs. And those assignments change from time to time. You might have it for 2-3 years. My assignment right now is that I'm the clerk of my congregation, which essentially means I'm responsible to take records of people who have been baptized, for example, or people who move into our congregation or outside. And the other thing that I'm responsible for is distributing all of the welfare for my congregation. So I'm very actually involved in the things that he's talking about. I'm also in charge of setting up this tithing meeting that he talks about with the bishop. Let me be very clear. Nobody shows their bishop bank statements, and that's never been done, at least in my lifetime, because not only am I part of that, I also do that every year. And here's how the meeting goes. He doesn't verify. He doesn't press you about it. He gives you the chance to talk to him just on, about anything spiritually. And then if you have financial problems, maybe you could talk to him about that. And then you have an opportunity to confess before God that you are tithing. And that's it. And you can lie if you want. I don't recommend it, but you can. And I've done it for, let's see, I'm 24 years old. I've done it every single year of my life. And every year with different bishops, it's gone the exact same way. And you do not need, this is one of the biggest lies. You do not need to be a full tithe payer to get welfare from the church in any capacity. That's just a bold-faced lie. In fact, you don't even have to be a member of the church. All you have to do is talk to the bishop. And if he feels that you have a need, he can distribute that welfare through the clerk, as I talked about. So here's an interesting graph that's been going on X. Again, intersecting with politics here. The poverty rates by states. If you look, the lowest is in Utah. Why is that, you might ask? Why is poverty so low in Utah? And by the way, really low in Wyoming and Idaho, which have a ton of members as well. The reason why, and you know, it's very bad in New Mexico, New York, Washington, D.C. The reason why is because the church has successfully privatized welfare. We do not rely on the welfare of the federal government. If you look at what Utah actually takes from the federal government, it's pretty much the only conservative state that does not take a lot from the government. Leftists make this point a lot, that there are red states that take a lot from the government. It's absolutely true. They do take a lot from the federal government. Utah is an outlier in that. And the reason why is because the church is a private form of welfare. What Shawn Ryan in this clip and what Nathan would have you believe is that the church should give their money to the state, and then the state should then be in charge of the welfare. And Utah does that differently because they're not taxed, because the church is not taxed. They have all the money they need to distribute the welfare. The result of that is the lowest poverty rate by a mile in the United States. So the lies that he says at the end of that clip that I showed are just complete fabrications. And by the way, that goes, again, for about 60% of Utah are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. 40% are not. So if the welfare was only going to that 60%, I guarantee you the poverty rates would not be that low. Here's the question with all of this. Who is fabricating these lies? Where is it coming from? Nobody would love to see the church fail, and most conservative groups in America turn on Republicans more than the left. More than the left. The left wants this. That's where it's coming from. The lies are coming from leftists ultimately. And they hope to trickle it down through people who are either willfully lying like Nathan or being useful idiots like Shawn Ryan. And again, it hurts me to say that because I like Shawn Ryan. I like him on most things, but he is so mistaken on this and he is going to lose his LDS audience because of it. They're stupid enough to fall for it. And they do the dirty work of the leftists. Cabot Phillips over from the Daily Wire did the exact same thing just about 2 weeks ago. He posted a kind of string of slurs against the church that were completely, they're just lies about our history. You know, not controversial ones either. Like not like, oh yeah, he could be right. No, like ones that have been debunked time and time again. And again, where did he get these lies? I guarantee you he got them from a leftist journalist on YouTube. I guarantee you that's where it is, some YouTube channel. So again, don't fall for it, guys. Conservatives cannot afford to lose the most conservative group in America. One of my favorite things about this show is being able to interact with you guys directly, and that's why I've created my new Substack. It's completely free to you. It's a weekly newsletter that comes into your email, and I'm able to talk about things that I just can't talk about here. I'm also able to interact with you directly, so go check it out right now. The link is in the description below. Thank you so much for watching this episode, everybody. Please like the video so other great patriots like yourselves will see it, and you can tune in every single weekday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show, or you can watch another video right here.